Hello and welcome to the relearning for calculating the standard form of a circle and finding the center and the radius. Please, if you haven't done so, please put your date at the top, your name, the period, and the number for your period. If you are looking at this at home and you don't have the paper, you can write it down on a separate sheet of paper and hand it in. Otherwise, the copies of the relearnings are in the back of room 1029 in the blue compartment. For this standard, they're located towards the bottom of the relearnings, towards the end of the list. Today what we're going to be talking about is the standard form of the circle. The standard form of the circle. Basically, you have to memorize it. It's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. So it looks a little bit funny, but if you look at it, you can see some patterns. The squared on the h minus x minus h and the y minus k is also squared. You can see some patterns, but most importantly, the one that you need to see right here is that the radius is squared. A lot of people miss that. When they look at the number, they may see the number 9 and they miss that the radius is 3. But you have to keep in mind that that's the radius squared. So how do you find the center and the radius? The center is the value h and k. So the tip I'm going to give you on this is that the h and k are the opposite signs. The opposite signs of what is in this equation here. So this looks like it's a negative h. We're going to have a positive h. So whatever the number is being subtracted is our value for our h and our k. Our radius squared means that we have to take the square root of it to get the radius. We have to take the square root of it to get the radius. What does this look like here? How is this going to be? So when we're looking at this here, when we look at this here, we're looking at it as we're going to be checking this out and see how this matches up with our formula. So we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So we can see that the h is 1. Looks like the opposite of the negative 1. And the k is 3. So this is our center. Our radius squared is equal to 49. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. Our radius is equal to 7. Radius is equal to 7. So everything is key to this formula that we have here in the very beginning. So make sure you're very familiar with that to be able to put that into form. Right now we're looking at the number 4, finding the center and the radius of here. Now this is a little bit different, but this is where the opposite signs comes into play, and it's very important. So our center is our h and our k. Our h right here looks like it's a positive 5. Our h is a negative 5, negative 5. And this is our y is a negative 7. Our radius squared is equal to 64. Take the square root of both sides, r equals 8. R equals 8. By doing this, it's kind of that little tips and trick on thinking about the opposite signs. It makes it so that we can be able to see that. Lastly, we're going to be looking at this when we are given the center and the radius. How do we put that in? Well, it's very simple. We're just putting it dropping that right in here. X minus, and we know that the 8.2 is our h because it's in our x component of our circle, plus y minus, and we're just going to put that negative 5 right in there. And that is equal to 6 squared. 6 squared. So we're looking at this and how can we clean this up a little bit? We don't need to do much right here. X minus 8.2 squared plus y plus 5. Negative times a negative is a positive 5. So we have a positive, we write it as a positive 5, but really it's plus 5 equals 6 times 6, which is 36. And this is our standard form right here. And we're all done. That's all it's asking us for is our standard form. So in here, The next part we're going to be looking at this is given the point 5, 6, and the center 4, 2, find the length of the radius and write the standard form of the equation. Write the standard form of the equation. So how are we going to do this? The easiest way that I have is I would graph these. So I'm going to graph the center first, because we know that the center of the circle to any point on the graph is the radius. That's the radius. So we're going to look at this to see if we can figure out how to do that. So I'm going to do the center first. 1, 2, 3, 4, going up to, there's our point. And I'm going to put a little C by it to help me to remember. So what is that? The point 5, 6 is on our circle. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we go to the 5 and then we go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's right here. And there is our radius. So how can we find this? Well, if you look at it, it really looks like it's a right triangle. So we're going to make it a right triangle, because then we can use our a squared plus b squared equals c squared to find the length of our hypotenuse. So how long is this right here? That's 1. This is 1 squared. So this section right here is 1. And this one right here is up 4. So we start 1, 2, 3, 4, up 4. So we go up 4 units. That gives us our section. So we have 1 squared is 1 plus 4 squared is 16. So that equals 17. So that's our radius squared, our c squared. So we have to take the square root of both sides. C is our radius. We could just call it our radius. And the square root of 17 is 4.12. So the length of this line is 4.12. So now we know the radius is 4.12. So we're going to put it in our standard form. So we already know the center. So it's x minus 4 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals our radius 4.12 squared. Clean this up just a little bit. X minus 4 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 17. That's our standard form. Now in this section right here, we have x squared plus y squared equals 26. X squared plus y squared equals 26. Now you notice there's no, it doesn't subtract anything. We don't have anything special. That's because we have 0 here. This is 0, 0. It doesn't subtract anything. It's actually subtracting 0. So a 0, 0, which is our origin, and our radius squared equals 26. We're going to take the square root of both sides. R equals the square root of 26. The square root of 26 is 5.1. So the center is right here, and the radius is right here. So the same thing is in here. We know that that's 26. It's got to be our squared. It's okay if we have in here a decimal. So here becomes the ones that are a little bit tricky when we're looking at changing from general form to standard form. So this is general form right here. This is general form. So we're going to be looking at breaking this apart. So what does x plus 5 mean? So x plus h times x plus h. So let's take a look at that. So if we had x plus 5 squared, that is the same thing as x plus 5 times x plus 5. So we're going to use the FOIL method or the double distribution. We're going to take, this is equal to x times x plus 5 plus 5 times x plus 5. Now if we do that, we're going to have x times x plus 5 times x plus 5x plus 25. And cleaning this up just a little bit more, I'm going to tuck it right in over here. We have x squared plus 5x plus 5x is 10x plus 25. Now, if you see, this will happen every time. The center term is 5 plus 5. The end term is 5 times 5. So what two numbers add to the center and multiply to the constant? Those are the two things that we're looking at in here when we're putting these things together, because we're eventually want to get back to looking like this here at the top, because that looks more like our equation of a circle. Let's take a look at this one here. We're going to take and see what we can do with this, because it's got a lot going on. So I'm going to rearrange it. X squared. And then I'm going to put my 8x right next to it. And I'm going to leave a space. Plus y squared minus 6y plus a space is equal to, and I'm going to take the 16 and move it to the other side. I'm going to add negative 16 to both sides. So we have 2 negative 16. So in here, we have the beginnings of this. We have the beginnings of this. We want to make that. We want to put something in there so that we can pull out this information so that it looks like our formula. So in here, we're interested in to what two numbers add to 8. Well, we know that that is 4 times 4. Those two numbers add to 8. So we're going to multiply them together. This is our pattern. Two numbers that add to the middle number and multiply to the constant. In here, we have these. So we have 4 times 4. And what you do to one side, we must do to the other. So 4 times 4 is a positive 16. This comes from right here. We're going to look at this here. What two numbers add to 6? That's 3 times 3 plus 3. So we're going to do 3 times 3 here. Once you add to one side, you must add to the other. This is 9. So let's clean this up a little bit. We can break this down into our sections. So we're looking at right here using our pattern. X plus 5 squared is equal to x squared plus 10x plus 25. So we're going to use that pattern. We see right now that we have this pattern. How do we get back to here? Well, this is where we're looking at this right here. So we're putting our x plus 4. So if I were to multiply x plus 4 times x plus 4, I would get x squared minus 8x plus 16. So we're going to write it in this way so we can see the beginning parts of our standard form. Right here we have y, and then, this should be a negative because this is negative, this is negative. So this should be a negative 3. This is negative, that's negative. Y minus 3 squared equals negative 16 plus 16 is 0, so this equals 9. Doesn't always happen that way, but it did happen this time where they drop out. So this is 9. So as you can see, we have our standard form of our equation here. X minus, it should be minus 4. If we multiplied it out, it would be x squared minus 8x plus 16. And this one multiplied out, y minus 3 times y minus 3 would give us y squared minus 6x plus 9. But we're interested in it in this form so that we can see the center and the radius. The center is equal to the opposite of negative 4, which is a positive 4, and the opposite of a negative 3, which is a positive 3. So there's our center. And our radius squared is equal to 9. Take the square root of both sides. R is equal to 3. R is equal to 3. Let's take a look at this one here. We're going to rearrange it so that the y's and the x's are the same. The first thing I want to do is I want to take that negative 5 and move it to the other side. So we're going to add negative 5 to both sides. X squared plus something. I don't have a second x term, so I'm going to just leave it like that, plus y squared plus 36y, and I'm going to leave a blank in here, is equal to negative 5 plus something plus something. So what plus here? We don't have that middle term, which means that we have a 0. We have a 0. When there's only the x term, we have y, 0 is a very acceptable answer. So we're going to say, what do numbers add to 36? So this is really tricky. This is one of those ones where it's quick. If you're quick on the draw, you might say it's 6. But 6 plus 6 is 12 and not 36. 18 plus 18 equals 36. So therefore, we're going to multiply 18 times 18 on this side. And then the amount on the other side that we have is 324. 324, 18 times 18 equals 324. So let's clean this up a little bit. The first one just stays x squared plus 0, really just stays x squared. The second part, we can break it into our parentheses. So I like to leave this as 18 times 18 here because it's a hint for me to put 18 right here. So we have y minus 18 squared. Y minus 18 squared times y minus 18 squared will give us y squared plus 3y squared plus 324, or 18 times 18. Right here, we have -5, which is where we moved over here, the 2 adding on, which is 0 and 324. If we were to 4 minus 5, or -5 plus 324 is equal to 319. 319. And now we have our formula. So we go back and answer. Did we put it in standard form? Absolutely, we did. Did we find the center and the radius? No, we need to do that. So the center is the opposite of this, which is 0. There's no opposite. There's no middle term, so therefore this is 0. And then we have in here the opposite of -18, which is 18. The radius squared equals 319. Take the square root of both sides. R is equal to 17.87. Okay, here are the U tries that you have in here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I really need you to put in words how you figured things out. These are for you, but it helps me to know what you're doing. All right, good luck.